Starting with the Argonian, you get minus 10 personality and minus 10 endurance right off the rip, but you do get poison and disease immunity, and you can breathe underwater, which is pretty cool. Your origin choices are Anicia or Thornmarsh. Anicia will give you plus 10 speed and agility, but minus 10 willpower. This is ideal for stealth builds. Thornmarsh, however, gives you plus 10 intelligence if you wanted to kind of go with a magic Argonian, but that's not the recommended race if you want to be a caster. I would recommend here Arnecia, just because more often than not you're going to be going with a stealth build, and the agility and speed bonuses matter a lot more than losing some willpower. For your major skills, you get plus 15 security and athletics, and you get plus 10 blade, hand-to-hand, alchemy, illusion, and mysticism. I'd say overall this isn't exactly a great race to choose from compared to the others, but they do look really cool, and they're one of the more interesting ones, especially for RPing in my opinion. I think it is a bit of a waste getting plus 15 security and plus 10 hand-to-hand, because with security, lockpicking isn't that tough once you get the hang of it, and you'll have hundreds of lockpicks before you know it, and hand-to-hand is the weakest melee ability in the game, so getting plus 10 in it, please, let's use something actually worthwhile here. Moving over to the Breton next, you get minus 10 agility and minus 10 endurance, but you do get plus 10 intelligence and plus 10 willpower to help balance that out. You also get plus 50 magicka, and you get a huge 50% magic resistance to all different types. Your origin choices are either Sistrus for a minus 10 speed, or High Rock for a minus 10 strength. Out of the two of them, I would pick Sistrus myself. I feel that having lower speed is less impactful to you than having lower strength, because with less strength you can carry less items, which means as soon as you get some weapons and armor, you're going to be fully loaded pretty much all the time, leaving you no space for looting. For your skills, Bretons get plus 15 mysticism, restoration, and conjuration, and they get plus 10 illusion, alchemy, and alteration. In my opinion, Bretons are one of the best choices in the game solely for the 50% magic damage resistance that comes racially, but if you want to dabble in spellcasting, either the Breton or the Altmer are going to be your best choices due to the positives in their school of magic for those skill bonuses. Moving on over to the Dunmer now, you get plus 10 speed to your attributes, you get fire resistance, you also get an ancestral ghost summon for 60 seconds once per day that you can use. However, you do have minus 10 willpower, which means you'll get a slower magicka regeneration. Your origin stories are either Vardenfell or the mainland. If you choose Vardenfell, you get minus 10 personality, and the mainland you get minus 10 endurance. Out of the two of these, definitely go with Vardenfell. Losing 10 personality points isn't a huge deal, whereas losing 10 endurance points means you're essentially losing like 25% of your max life. Really, it's not worth it just to keep 10 points in personality, as endurance is going to be far more impactful to you in the long run. In terms of their skills, they get plus 15 in both Blade and Destruction, and they get plus 10 in Marksman, Light Armor, Mysticism, Blunt, and Athletics. While Dunmer are a personal favorite of mine, thank you Driss Doradin from the Forgotten Realms, they fall into the middle of the pack overall due to them just being balanced across many different areas. The fire resistance is great to have, as that'll be the most common magical element you'll encounter, especially when you deal with Oblivion gates, and they do make amazing custom spellsword builds due to their bonuses in the combat arts and destruction. Their drawbacks here is they only have a bonus in destruction and mysticism, and many racial bonuses are wasted as you likely only specialize in either blade or blunt in the long run. Athletics is also a waste because you can just train that passively and you don't really need a plus 10 in it to get going. The next elf on our list would be the High Elf, or the Altmer. They get plus 10 intelligence, but they do get minus 10 strength. They get plus 100 magicka. They also are vulnerable to all elemental magics, which isn't great, but they do get some disease resistance. Your origin choices, and I hope I don't butcher this, is Auradon or the Somerset Isles. Now with Auradon, you get minus 10 speed, and Somerset Isles, you get minus 10 endurance. Out of the two of them, as I mentioned before, I would go with Auradon, because when you have a difference between speed or endurance, I would always take endurance over speed to have as the higher stat, because it's just better to have more health, faster regenerating health, over just moving a little bit faster in the long run. For their stats, they have plus 15 in Alteration, Destruction, and Mysticism, and plus 10 in Illusion, Conjuration, and Alchemy. This is one of the best choices, if not the best in my opinion, if you're going for a casting build. For stealth and combat builds, definitely look elsewhere. A drawback with the Altmer is you have less carry weight with minus 10 strength, but you get bonuses in pretty much all the magic schools outside of Restoration. You also get 100 magic as a racial bonus, which gives you a lot more magic that you can cast against your foes. Next in the list, we have the Imperials. So with the Imperials, they get minus 10 agility, but plus 10 personality. They get bonuses to heavy armor, speechcraft, and mercantile, and these tend to be more combat classes. Your two choices for origin are the Nibene or Colovia regions, Nibene giving you minus 10 willpower, and Colovia giving you minus 10 speed. Now with the Imperial, more often than not you'll be a combat class, so out of the two of these, I would choose Nibene. You do lose 10 willpower, but you don't lose the speed. Now, where speed isn't super important for a combat class, Magicka regeneration certainly isn't important, so it would be better for you to be able to move a little quicker, especially in that heavy armor, by picking the Nibene and keeping your speed higher. Their skills, they get plus 15 in heavy armor, mercantile, and speechcraft, and plus 10 in hand-to-hand, blade, and blunt. This is an okay race in my opinion. I would mostly use them for RP purposes. I think wasting 2 of the plus 15 boosts on mercantile and speechcraft is pretty silly due to reasons I've mentioned in other races. Essentially, they're not combat focused, you'll get enough loot and you'll have a ton of money in no time where you don't really need that benefit. Those skills just aren't important to surviving. They do get small bonuses in all 3 melee weapons. With no dual wielding, once again, this is actually a drawback because you're trying to find yourself just using probably one of them. So having hand-to-hand, which sucks, blade, or blunt, that really kind of removes a lot of your potential there for your plus 10s. Coming down a road to the Wood Elves or the Bosmer, they get minus 10 strength and minus 10 willpower, but they make up for it with plus 10 speed and plus 10 agility. Their origin choices are the Grotwood or Reaper's March. Now, Grotwood will give you minus 10 personality, and Reaper's March will give you minus 10 endurance. You've heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again. You're going to want to always choose personality as a drawback over endurance as a drawback. So we're going to go with Grotwood as the ideal origin for this race choice. Personality can be overcome with bribes and just with having more loot, but losing the endurance is tough, especially for your sneak classes, as you're already not heavily armored, so losing a ton of HP means that you're only going to be able to take a couple hits before you're really struggling to survive. Their stats, they get plus 15 in Alchemy, Marksman, and Sneak, and they get plus 10 in Light Armor, Acrobatics, and Alteration. This is probably the worst race to choose here on the list, which is a bummer because I love the Wood Elves for their lore and their style, but their bonuses have a very small impact in late game, and they're not impactful enough compared to the other races for the early game to be particularly worth it either. Sneak you can always cheese, so having 15 in that is kind of a moot point, and getting an acrobatics bonus is silly for the same exact reason. You can just stand in a corner and jump for a while to increase your acrobatic skill. Now we've got the Redguards. The Redguards get a natural plus 10 endurance, but they do lose 10 intelligence and willpower. Their origin stories are either the Dragontail Mountains or the Alakir Desert. If you choose the Dragontail Mountains, you get plus 10 strength, but minus 10 personality. If you choose the Alakir Desert, you actually don't get any modifiers at all, believe it or not. That being said, I believe that the Dragontail Mountains is the better choice out of the two, because you get the 10 strength, you do lose 10 personality, but I feel that the carry weight, especially if you use heavy armor, is far more important over the personality reduction. Plus, you don't want to pick an origin that doesn't give you anything. In terms of their stats, they get a plus 15 to blunt, blade, and athletics, and a plus 10 to heavy armor, light armor, and mercantile. This is a solid combat choice for a race. Don't pick a caster as a Redguard due to you losing 10 points in both magic attributes, but a Redguard is a very balanced close quarters choice if you want to choose that playstyle. I don't personally love the plus 15 stats they get because of the same reasons I mentioned with Imperials, as you should ideally try to choose one close quarters combat weapon when you make your class, but if you do want to go combat, I would say Redguard, Orc, or Nord are going to be the best calls. Sliding to the left of Redguard, we've got ourselves the Orc. Their base attributes, they get plus 5 strength, plus 5 willpower, and plus 10 endurance, but they do lose 5 agility, 10 speed, and 10 personality. They gain the Berserker Rage, which is a really fun skill, and their origin choices are Stronghold and Orsinium. Now, with Stronghold, you would lose 10 intelligence but gain 5 willpower. In Orsinium, you just lose 5 personality. Now, I would choose the Orsinium one, to be honest with you. Orcs don't have great personality, and it's not going to make much of a difference having a plus or a minus 5, but with Stronghold, you're going to lose 10 int just to gain 5 willpower, And while you're not going to be doing a lot of casting with the orc, it just seems like there's more stats that are a detriment in terms of choosing Stronghold over Orsinium. But really, it doesn't matter so much with the orc because of your combat stats. Now for your skills, you got plus 15 in armor, block, blunt, and heavy armor, and plus 10 in only hand-to-hand. Now this is probably my favorite combat choice in terms of race here, because the Berserker Rage is super fun. Having the armor bonus of plus 15 is great for keeping your equipment in top shape to maximize your damage, and there's only one martial combat weapon with a plus 15 in blunt. The hand-to-hand having plus 10 isn't great, but at least it's not a plus 15. An orc is one of the few races that get 4 high-level bonuses rather than the usual 3 that most races get. They may look a bit ugly, but they're definitely a top-level combat race. To the left of the orc is the people of Skyrim. We probably all know them very well, the Nords. With the Nords, you get a frost resistance, plus 10 strength, but you do lose 10 points in intelligence and personality. Your origin choices are either Western or Eastern. If you choose Western, you lose 10 willpower but gain plus 10 endurance, and with Eastern, you don't really lose anything or gain anything. I would choose Western here. More often than not with a Nord, you're going to be going with the combat class, so having the plus 10 endurance is going to give you 20% more HP, and is going to help you regen HP 20% faster, and all you're losing is some mana regeneration, which doesn't super matter all that much. Your skills, you're going to get plus 15 in Blade, Blunt, and Heavy Armor, and plus 10 in Restoration, Block, and Armorer. I think Nords are very solid combat choices personally. I think it is a waste having both Blade and Blunt at plus 15 in the major bonuses, which is why I think the Orc is a better choice overall. However, the Orc will lock you into blunt weapons mostly because that's their only plus 15. The Frost resistance is cool, but most enemies aren't going to use Frost magic, so you won't find a huge benefit for it very often. However, when you do, it'll make things on easy mode. I'd put this right next to the Redguard in terms of quality. I think the Orc gives you more bang for your buck in terms of just straight combat, but if you want to use a Blade, then I'd go with Nord, as Redguard has a lot of personality skill bonuses that I don't think are great, especially for combat, whereas with Nords, the bonuses are all I feel a little more useful. Last but not least on the list is the Khajiit. Now, I wouldn't put them very high on the list of best races to use. They get plus 10 agility and minus 10 willpower along with the night vision ability, which is a constant effect. Their origin stories, and I'm going to butcher these names, is Anekina and Palatine. If you choose Anekina, you'll get minus 10 endurance, whereas Palatine will give you minus 10 strength. This is a tough call between which two of these to choose. I'd probably say Anekina personally, as I always run out of carrying space playing as a stealth class, specifically a Khajiit, and losing even more carry weight with minus 10 strength would be a huge buzzkill to playing because you have to increase the time you go back to town, sell stuff, go back into the dungeon, and make your way there. Otherwise, you're going to have to decide what loot to abandon, and for me, I'm a loot goblin. I never want to abandon shit. For your stats, you get plus 15 in hand-to-hand and acrobatics, and plus 10 in athletics, blade, light armor, sneak, and security. Khajiit aren't great because I don't love most of the racial skill bonuses. Plus 15 in hand-to-hand is the weakest combat in the game by far, and acrobatics, you can cheese that to level it easily. The minor bonuses aren't really great either, as athletics, sneak, and security are all stats that you can level with minimal effort as it is. And as far as light armor and blade, there's other races that'll give you better benefits for that. And that's our overview of all the races. Stay tuned for an overview of all the signs and changes that happened in those for the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. Thanks, everyone. May Akatosh guide your way.